The original invitation from FIPP was out to my colleague Adam Freeman, and Adam Freeman, formerly our MD in the EMEA region, very kindly provided an exciting title, The Future of Media in the Middle East and Africa. I must admit, firstly, I'm not Adam, and secondly, I'm going to shy away from the predictions game. If you're in business news, you treat predictions very carefully. Who would have thought, standing here in the UAE, that a year ago oil was down to $30 as it is today? Who would have thought, standing here today, that Twitter's share price a year ago, touching 60, was now down to less than 20? Who would have thought that a year ago the WhatsApp app was just beginning to break through and is now used by over 1 billion people? So when it comes to predictions, guys, I shall leave that to the next speaker, to Samir. What I won't do as well is pepper you with a lot of audience data and trends and information about how the markets, specifically in the Middle East and Africa, are developing and growing. Because you already know all of that. You already know that there are more mobile devices than people on the planet already. You already know that social as an activity digitally is the single biggest activity that any of us engage in. Whether or not you know that Facebook now reaches more people in the US than ABC, CBS, NBC, and all of the television networks combined is something I didn't know until I found that out a couple of months back, just to demonstrate the power of social. What you may not know, what you may know, is that in the Middle East and Africa region, over $15 billion of advertising was spent just last year. And what we do know is that while TV remains the dominant media, I'm afraid that print, both newspapers and magazines, are only headed in one direction when it comes to share of ad spend, whereas digital is obviously going in a quite different direction. So that's enough about what I'm not going to show you. Let's have a look at what we want to talk about from a Bloomberg perspective. We're very simple and focused as a business media company. Everything that we do stems from this statement and underlines 4 key elements of our focus. The first of which is that we're in the business of speed. We need to publish quickly. The second is that we're in the business of credibility. We need to publish accurately. The third is that we're focused in a particular category. That's financial news and business information. And the fourth is that we do this globally. It's important that we reach audiences on a local and regional level, but Bloomberg Media is first and foremost a global media network. We kicked off Bloomberg Media built out of the original and continuing Bloomberg business based on the terminal, the Bloomberg professional service, and a great picture you see here of that terminal in action. In a way, that was the first step of investing in this particular region. The Bloomberg terminal business now has over 150 folks across not just the UAE, but the MENA region in total. Supported by over 150 journalists in over 35 bureaus, it provides a whole range of services to the terminal subscribers. You can see that the real-time data on which we base that Bloomberg terminal is a key driver. We make sure that the speed of publishing means that our subscribers have what they need when they need it. And that community, of which we've heard so much about earlier, can connect on a global basis through the terminal. So that's our starting position. And in regards to the Middle East, we've begun to invest even more in our media business, of which more later. But what we'll do continually, not just in the Middle East and Africa, but globally, is make sure that Bloomberg Business Media makes global business leaders smarter and faster through the services that we provide. Here's a really interesting example from Davos just last month. So this is a still taken from Bloomberg TV with our anchor Manus interviewing the CEO of Maersk, a well-known shipping container business. So while we're interviewing the CEO on air, in the terminal you can look at the stock price of the company. You can see in real time, mapped to the minute-by-minute interview progress, how that stock price is impacted by shareholders and investors worldwide. You can see that there's a trough, and that trough begins to change as soon as Manus gets into that interview. And within only a matter of minutes, there's over an additional $200 million worth of value in Maersk as a result of Bloomberg Media. Speed, credibility, making our audiences smarter and faster, and Bloomberg changing matters, changing currencies, changing commodities, and in the case of Maersk, changing companies. I promise not to get into too many numbers, but here's the big number, as it were, from a Bloomberg Media perspective. This is the number of our users on a global basis, deduped. We publish on many, many platforms, but we have many, many users who experience the Bloomberg Media proposition across multiple platforms. We take all of those out, and what we're left with is a focused global business audience of nearly 50 million across as many devices and platforms as you can imagine. Starting with the terminal, we published this story just a couple of weeks ago. So this is the news of a brewing industry takeover. So we published this in the terminal to our subscriber base at 7:03 in the morning. Other media jump in. Look at the timestamp for how other business media are covering it and the speed at which they pick up the story. So, well done to Reuters, well done to the BBC. CNN Money's getting in there quite quickly. Well done Fast FT, a lot faster than those three competitors. But look what happens when Bloomberg Media picks up the story the minute after we publish in the terminal. Not only do we pick up the story and publish on social, on Twitter, to our 4 million followers, we can republish and republish before any of the other media players have picked up the story. Speed, credibility, makes business users smarter and faster. Of course, it's great to have a series of owned and operated properties and platforms. But during Davos, we faced a rather embarrassing situation that from an advertising perspective, we're entirely sold out. So we made the distinct play on a social platform, in this case Storify, to take our advertiser with us onto a social network. And here's how that experience flowed through, not on our own platforms, but on the Storify platform, delivering a package of news that our advertiser was proud to be associated with. Of course, we publish in first-party mode. You can read Bloomberg Media across a whole range of publications and devices. You can listen to Bloomberg Media through all manner of different devices, the terminal, laptops, mobiles, and apps. You can watch Bloomberg Television through a whole manner of different devices. And here's a great example. This UBS advertiser relationship is landed in the London City Airport. So our television channel moves onto web, moves onto device, and moves into the real world, so that all of the business passengers flowing through the London City Airport are getting not just the great Bloomberg content proposition, but are also experiencing an advertising environment at the same time. We try and bring that all together in digital. So, of course, we have a website and associated apps in which that reading experience, that listening experience, and that watching experience come together in a completely integrated way. I'm struck by some of the conversations in the room that the last 10 years appears to have all been about platforms and business models. Now, over on the left of the slide, you'll see some of those credible brands, those credible business publishers who have made a very good fist of developing into the new digital world. So these are the so-called digital immigrants that we hear about, who are doing surprisingly well and are beginning to see growth in both audiences and revenues. Interestingly enough, the digital natives, the upstarts, if you like, over on the right-hand side of the slide, are increasingly experiencing challenges of their own, and they're beginning to see audience growth slow. I wonder whether or not, as publishers having experienced that digital revolution over the last 10 or so years, when we focused on platforms, we focused on models, whether in fact it's time for our next revolution, which, let's remind ourselves, is all about going round, and to see whether or not the credibility of business news in particular is something that we should get back to, is certainly something that Bloomberg Media feels very strongly about.